Peace was never the goal, only absolute triumph, whatever it takes. Part 3. War engines thundered ceaselessly behind the Dominion's front lines. In a last-ditch effort to catch up, foundries poured out new battleships as they burned brighter than ever. Soldiers were being trained more quickly than they could be furnished due to the overflow of recruitment centers. All they could think of was that the Icarus were intruders, threats against the law, ancient savages, rival empires, renegade ships, and uprisings have all been encountered by the Kalian. However, nothing like this has ever happened. Nevertheless, the people progressed. The terms of this fight were not equal. The Dominion depended on discipline, control, and tactics that had been honed over thousands of years. The people moved violently and erratically, disregarding dogma. Before a reaction might develop, a single Icarus strike force may suddenly materialize, destroy a supply chain, and disappear. They hunted in addition to having swift ships. Nothing remained after they hit vital systems. Long, drawn-out engagements didn't interest them. They targeted the most painful areas. Then there was ground combat. They referred to the Dominion's loss of Narration Prime as an anomaly. They discovered that the loss of Draenor Prime and Kethros 6 in the same cycle wasn't an accident. Rather, it was intentional. The Dominion has never faced a force like the Icarus troops. Drones, autonomous weaponry, remote coordination, and battle from a distance were the mainstays of the Kalian and the majority of galactic nations. In order to prevent fatalities, their commanders directed machinery. But the people? They battled in streets swept by flames, in destroyed cities, and in ruins. They didn't deploy robots to defend them. They served as the weaponry, trained in clean, strategic battle. Dominion troops were frightened. Pressure didn't cause the Icarus to shatter. When outnumbered, they refused to give up. They employed strategies that were counterintuitive until they proved effective. The shock soldiers were the worst. They weren't only murderers. They went hunting. They adjusted. They gained knowledge. They took advantage of vulnerabilities more quickly than any adversary the Dominion had encountered. A few Icarus agents may destroy a whole Kalian battalion in a single night. By Dominion standards, their kinetic missiles and magnetic bursts were considered rudimentary weaponry. But like paper, they tore apart the armor. They did not hesitate to fight, and the Dominion was more scared by it. They weren't only intruders, something they were taking back, under layers of encryption and limited access. Supreme Chancellor Vacos unearthed a fact that should remain concealed in the Dominion's deep archives. The people were still there. They were no longer there. They were a rising power, young but swiftly growing, establishing alliances and perfecting battle. And the early Kalian had faced them even before the Dominion emerged. Not maliciously, in a hurry, desperate. Thus, the neighbors of the Kalian decided to take action. Genocide was committed by them. Colonies of humans were burned. Documents were cleared out. To the edge of the cosmos, survivors hunted. It was exhaustive, effective, final. Not quite definitive enough, though. The Icarus had survived somehow. And suddenly they came back after centuries of stillness. Not as victors, as those who carry out executions. Vacos gazed at images from the past. Sanitized colonies, burning cities, and long-dead Kalian commanders nodding solemnly and cruelly. They weren't only despised by humans. Hatred was not as frigid as what they carried. It was revenge. An alert suddenly rang out in the battle room. A live broadcast flashed into view. Admiral Torinek's face showed up as pale, tense, and nearly shaking. "They're here," he said quietly. Vacos bent over. "Where?" Torinek took a while to respond. Then he said, "Here," with fear in his eyes. "On Vral Prime." And there was stillness in the room. The fall of Narration Prime is just the beginning. If you were faced with the reality of your history, how would you respond? Please share your thoughts, and together, let's continue to solve this mystery. The Fall of Nereth Prime is the third part. The Fall of Nereth Prime is just the beginning. If you were faced with the reality of your history, how would you respond? Please share your thoughts, and together, let's continue to solve this mystery.